Kukpi, Kukshem Kea, Kukshem Sla'a, Kukshem Imch, Tamuk, Selkwa, and Kukshem to the Silk. So I wanted to start off by, I'm Stephen Teed. I'm a counselor for the Adams Lake Indian Band, the Shuswap Nation. I wanted to thank the land and the animals and the water. I wanted to thank the grandmothers and the grandfathers and, of course, the grandchildren who are all here to think about when we're doing business and everything we do in life as First Nations and Kalmuk. And then, of course, I wanted to thank the Okanagan Nation and the Syilx Nation, my brothers and sisters from the South. We have a long history together and a proud one. And it's exciting to see where the future goes, and I wish everybody the most success. With that being said, again, my name is Stephen Teed. I'm the founder and CEO of Green Future Industries. We've done a few presentations here. It's great to see a lot of returning faces who are interested and continue to explore the opportunity of hemp. I know it's not a easy industry to get into, and there's a lot of hurdles, misinformation, and a lot of difficult barriers to jump over to get into any industry, especially one that's new. So here's my clicker. So we'll jump into my presentation, and then we have a few other guests here today that'll expand on some of the topics with their expertise. I'm very excited for the people that are here today. We've brought some experts from different areas to come and expand on things that I've been talking about at these conferences to help give more details and in-depth knowledge for communities and businesses to take that next step and find the right place for you in the industry. We all don't have agricultural land, but some have a workforce, some have location, but we all have the right values and the right mindset. So I'm just going to start by, there's some pictures there from our harvest. We had some great fields. We also had some terrible fields, and I'm going to go elaborate more on that on the difficulties of farming. So a little bit about our vision, and that's to facilitate an Indigenous-driven hemp initiative that will include farmers, builders, processing, and research. We want to be able to provide the resources required to encourage First Nations people to become involved in any of the thousands of opportunities that hemp offers. So as the picture sees, we're a blank canvas, a field with unlimited possibilities, and it's up to us to put that work in and love to grow the best products that we can. And we want to be able to help everybody here grow the best product, and that's with transfer of knowledge and education. So our goals, we want to become a leader in First Nations education, cultivation, processing, and post-harvest manufacturing. We've explored and done our own research in a lot of these areas because, as you know, there's not a whole lot of science online. We are working with MyTax on improving that research that's necessary for industry, as well as for different applications. We want to promote hemp as a positive step against global warming. That's talking with government and lobbying for hemp as a carbon negative product, and answering a lot of the questions about climate change. Anybody listen to the election or anything on the news lately, it seems to be all about climate change and CO2. So instead of arguing about it, it's time to start bringing answers to the table. We want to develop new code and approved building systems for green First Nations building. That's our area of interest and has been since the beginning. And I've heard a lot of people here come to talk to me about the building opportunities of hemp, how to get into it, what are the possibilities, and how to get there. And today, hopefully, we can answer some of your questions with the people that are presenting from the different areas and different businesses that are here today. As somebody in the industry, I must say I'm very excited about the people today here. And I'm very thankful for the organizers, Howard and David and Lisa for organizing and bringing everybody in. So we are here to develop soil remediation protocol, develop genetics, and just pretty much everything needs to be developed right now. So a little bit for people that haven't seen or haven't done the research on hemp, a little hemp 101. You can't smoke hemp and get high. There's the differences in THC content. There's no THC in industrial hemp. So it's a lot easier of a license to access through Health Canada, your industrial hemp license. There's a lot more community support. Let's say if your community is on the fence on cannabis, like so many of us are, industrial hemp is another avenue to go down that is not, is not rooted in some of those, stigmas and trying to convince everybody. It's a different avenue, and it's a very exciting one that gets a lot of good attention once people start reading and knowing a lot about it. And I must say and admit, our communities, First Nations communities, they are very knowledgeable in hemp. It's been kind of that, Hail Mary industry that's been talked about for 30, 40 years, about hemp rope and plastics and all these different things and clothing. And it's time to bring those to reality and do the work to get those to where they are in industry and everyday products. So when you go to the store, everything on the shelf has a little bit of hemp in it. That kind of impact is where we can go and where we want to go. And again, as I said, hemp is used for food, clothing, building materials, paper products, biodegradable plastics, and of course, the new industry is CBD, now that was legalized in Canada. So a little bit more in depth on the hemp seed: high source of protein, low content of saturated fats, ratio omega-6 and omega-3 essential fatty acids. That's what we actually grew for this year, was organic hemp seed for the food and cosmetic industry. That's been the focus in Canada since 1999, when it was first legalized to grow again. It's the biggest industry in Canada and our biggest export for hemp at the moment. And so we stuck with that to try to develop and learn to grow and stick with the seed industry. So expanding on that, from the seed, you also have the hemp fiber, and that would be used for clothing and rope. And I put some examples up there. Those are some hemp fabrics, hemp jacket. I also put the Pendleton blanket up there because I want to remind people, we have our own style and our own culture, and it's always an issue with me personally when I buy a beautiful native blanket or beautiful native design something and it's on a polyester oil-based product. And so it's beautiful and I want to support it, but then at the same time, I know what it did to the environment to get here. So it's time we start not just looking at the product to put our own culture on it, but also to make a better sourced product and something that follows true to our culture of environmental sustainability and protection. And so when you think about avenues to go down in the industry, there's a lot of opportunity with fiber and clothing markets, especially with the amount of interest that we've been receiving regarding tourism and the standing up of our culture by so many. So from the fiber, from the stock, you not only have the fiber, but you have the hurd, and that's used to be a waste product, but thanks to technology, persistence, and a lot of ingenuity, the hurd is now one of the most, what I think is the most valuable part of the hemp plant. It's used in building materials, paper products, a lot of things, but today I want to talk about the building part of the hurd. So a little bit, why would you build with hemp in the first place? Well, there's a lot of positive attributes of building with hemp, from the fire safety, the noise reduction, improved indoor air quality, energy reduced, mold resistant, stronger and more resilient. If everybody here, if you've been to the reserve and you know that housing is in a crisis state for so many of us, as a counselor and as a leader in my community, that was one of the issues I wanted to address and improve for my community. But I didn't want to just build them another BC box that was going to get deteriorated over 20 years, and then they're forced to make huge repairs that my grandmother can't afford, or single mothers can't afford. So they ended up living in houses that get worse and worse over time. And because we're on reserve, we don't get the same kind of opportunity through banks and funding institutions to make these home improvements, because they don't see as much value on reserve. So I wanted to bring a home and something that was not only a better product, but something that was grown in our community, processed in our community, and built by our community. Because we got to keep that money in our communities. We can't just get a bunch of money and then it's gone before anybody ever gets anything out of it. We have to start, circulating that money and, employing not only just for building, but for growing and processing. So when you're building a $200,000 home, all of a sudden, all that money is changing hands multiple times and everybody is succeeding because of it. And that's how we can start building our way out of the situation we've been put in. We didn't ask for this situation on reserve. It's a product of colonization, and it's something that we have to fight hard to represent and get out of. And that's what I'm here to do. So there's some hemp homes there. Beautiful homes from different places, different companies. There's the blocks there on the right that my friend over here from Just Biofiber will be talking about. Those are some of their products. I want to show you what's out there, and everybody make their decision, because everybody needs different things and everybody likes different products. So there is a range of products out there that you can use, a lot of great companies to start talking with and getting involved. Not everybody needs to grow it, but if you're looking to build, there is options out there ready to go. And as you can see, they're beautiful homes. They're not just better homes, they're beautiful homes, and homes that you can feel proud of. So this is what we're bringing to our community, and I'm very excited for the guys today to talk about what they're doing in the building industry that I look up to and what they're building, because it's definitely a bright future, especially when you talk about the carbon retention and the carbon negative aspects of the building. Then you're going to really start to make some headway there. So there's some buildings. So with that being said, of course, with all this stuff comes environment and research. So we've been working with Ministry of Agriculture. We've been working with researchers, traditional knowledge keepers, to look at the environmental impact of growing hemp. And we're utilizing technology to improve our yields and impact on the earth. And at this time, I'd like to bring up my colleague here, Jordan Robinson. He's got a degree in ecology and environmental biology, and he's going for his master's in environmental economics, and he's going to come and talk about some of the research Green Future Industries is doing and kind of the opportunity that comes with it. So, Jordan?
Lan 2, Jordan Robinson, Tluchuk Tui, Dennis Lynn. My name is Jordan Robinson. I'm from Cold Lake First Nations in Northern Alberta. I have a degree in ecology and environmental biology. I'm going for a master's in environmental economics. I have a mapping certificate and a drone pilot's license, and I've been using the drone to monitor our crops that we've been growing this year in Adams Lake. We were doing a plant count analysis, plant health analysis, and then now we're starting to look forward to potential research that I can apply my degree to. So right now I'm looking at research and development opportunities. My degree will be in environmental economics, but the research and development opportunities I'm going to be focusing on will be the product lines. I want to get end products off of our crops on our reserves. So that being said, we're looking into machinery for fiber, machinery for cloth, hemp brick. Oh, you got some slides here? Okay. Oh, yes. Okay, so here, it's introducing me for me. Okay. So we did a couple of plant health analyses this year. In the bottom corner there, you can see that was a drone shot I did from overhead. And it had it was looking at the wavelengths of the light that was emitted from the plant. So you can tell how healthy a plant is by the greenness of the leaf. And the brownness of the leaf will indicate how unhealthy it is. And in this crop, you can see that we did have some healthy crop and some unhealthy crop. But this was like our trial crop. And we did have others that were really big. You saw earlier this in the earlier slide. Steve was standing with some of our plants that were like far above the head, and you can make lots of rope with it and produce a lot of brick. So yes, so I got a drone pilot certification with Navigation Canada, and I could fly in restricted airspace, which opens up the opportunity for people who are within aerodromes, within airports, to be able to have their crops analyzed, and I could take aerial photographs of the land to help with the planning of your crops, and we've been doing that so far this year. The industrial applications, again, so we're looking at agriculture, agricultural training with Skeetchison. So there's like greenhouse applications for CBD, extending the life of the plant and extending the growing season into the winter months. And then there was also the food preservation research that we're doing, and I'm just trying to name as many as I can off the top of my head, but we have. Oh yes, so we got soil remediation as well. We did some soil sampling in our crops, and then we're going to be planning our planting around the health of our soil, rather than just letting our soil deplete. So there's that. We also have. I'm just gonna keep moving. Okay, so these are. This is a sample of the analysis that I did with the drone at the crop, and so just based on the what was it, 1.6 acres or 0.6 acres, we had 13,781 plants that were growing, independent hemp plants, and we found that out with the drone by taking a picture overhead. I didn't actually go out and count them. So we saved a lot of time by doing that, and we were able to make predictions for how we're going to process these plants in the future. Well, what we already did in the fall. So then we're also looking at employment and training opportunities, so agriculture, developing the equipment, skills, and knowledge to be able to send our people back onto their land so that they can cultivate their own crops, providing and help people provide a space for them to sell their crops to. And so then, that being said, well, we're going to be, and we're working on processing and warehouses for the final products that we want to see come off, which include all of those, all those products, right? But we want to focus mainly on the building material, food preservation, food production, and the data acquisition and development of these products. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Jordan. Yeah, Jordan's been doing a lot of our research and crunching the numbers that not all of us have the skills to do, so it's very valuable when you try to take this knowledge to the government or industry, and they like to see the numbers and the research being done, and we can't wait around for somebody else to do it. It's our job to kind of get that done if we're going to push this industry in the direction that we see is the most beneficial. And just to go back to some of the things and the employment and training opportunities. Again, we, as being a business owner in my community for a number of years and employing many different people from all different walks of life in our community, we know that training is a huge hurdle that a lot of people have to get through to build that capacity to be successful. And we feel that we have a unique approach to that really helps build that knowledge and strength in your community on an industry that the people come into our industry, youth and even elders who come work on the fields, and when they're in a hemp field, they can feel the power of the positive energy in there, and they leave every day happy, and they show up every day happy. And even when it's raining and it's ugly and they gotta bust their back to get the job done, they're there and they're doing it, and they'll tell me they've never done that for another job in their whole life, and they're 60 plus, and this is the only time they felt value when they go to work. And that's what we want to instill back into them, because I have a lot of family that work in industries such as mining and forestry and gas, and they go home and they don't feel happy about what they're doing to their environment, because we live in that environment and we see the damage and harm that these industries are causing to our waters, our animals, and the overall surroundings and health of everything. So it's time to start weaning off of those industries and start getting into something that's positive and that's going to have a benefit to everybody. So again, with that positive steps and through a series of joint ventures and agreements, Green Future Industries has chosen to partner with successful sector leaders, strategic relationships with equipment manufacturers, seed propagators, biologists, genetic experts, and extraction equipment, establishing working dialogues with all levels of government, and build out hemp brokerage, as well as building brand awareness. So these are things we're working on right now, and we've made the positive leaps and bounds, and there's a lot of very good people out there who have a good heart and that want to work hard, and hopefully you find some of them today, and some of them will be up on this stage and talking about what they're doing. So here's a couple stats for 2019, just to tell you everything's not sunshine and rainbows out on the field. It is a lot of work, and not everything is going to be a success. So I'll show you on that top left, that's a field where we had no germination, and we lost the entire acreage just because nothing grew, whether it was the weather, the seeds, the moisture. There's so many different variables, so we were working to narrow it down to figure out what went well and what did not. But at the same time, we have fields where they're just beautiful and enormous and better results than we could ever hope for. So again, with that is taking the data and collecting what made it be successful so we can replicate that next year. And then when people come to us and say, hey, we want to grow hemp as well, we can give you that data on how to be the best and grow the best product that you possibly can, so you don't make the same mistakes we did over the years, because those mistakes, they can cost you a season. And this is not a quick business to get into. You're not going to open up, get your license, and start making money. It takes a lot of hard work, dedication, years of patience before you start to get there, because you're going to make mistakes, and you're gonna either learn from them and adapt and get better, or you're going to fold up and go home, and that's not what we're here to do. So I want to make sure that you're successful from year one, and you just have a good experience, and you can start growing and get better and better from the first time you plant. So where are we now and what's next? We planted 400 acres in 2019. We harvested, we cleaned all our seed, packaged, dried. We're working with a cold press, and we're going to be pressing for hemp seed oil. We're working with several landowners and nations across Canada for next season. A lot of people I've talked to are here. There's a lot of people on the fence. As being a counselor for Adams Lake, I know politics don't really always run as quickly as possible, so we deal a lot with CP landowners, because they can get ready for that season for you right away. So there's two avenues that you can go down. We've done a lot of lobbying with the provincial and federal government for hemp, and that is just educating them. They have no clue about the industry or the plant. It's like talking to somebody who's never heard of the internet before. It's difficult, and it takes a lot of time and energy, but we're getting there, and we're making some progression with them. So we're investing in agricultural technology, expanding our reach across Canada to help other First Nations, and that's what we're really here to do. We don't want to tell you how to do, we want to inform you how to do it, but we don't want to tell you what to do at the end of the day. That's your decision and what's best for your community. All we can do is help give you the tools to be very successful, hopefully. So then going forward, we're planning to kick some ass in 2020. We're just going to keep this going and see what happens, because that's what we have to do. You just got to, we had an elders meeting, and at the end of the day, all they told me was just do it. Stop talking and just do it. They're tired of waiting around for people to do things and consultations and all these different things that, delay. You miss your planting season, you're done for a year. You got to wait another year as soon as you miss spring. It's November, almost December now. You can start planning, and you could be ready for spring if you start working. So one thing we'll be talking about later, and something we've kind of seen a need for, is a cooperative. For our First Nations, Indigenous hemp growers, there's a lot of us across Canada. We're all not public. We're all not up on stage. But there's a lot of people out there already working, growing, and the idea is to help people coordinate with buyers, sellers, seeds, extractors in your area. You need to work with the people in your region to share equipment. That's always a big thing that always comes up is, well, how do we afford the equipment? It's so expensive. And you're going to have to work together with your partners and your neighbors because farm equipment is incredibly expensive. I could never have gotten to this industry if it wasn't for my partner over there, Tim Lepp, let me lease his equipment and wreck it and burn it and do all those fun things in the field. It's not an easy industry, and it's pretty abusive to your equipment. But he stuck through and he believed in it. So finding those people is key. And hopefully I can introduce you to those kind of people because there are out there, and we do talk, and I just want to see everybody be successful. So with the cooperative, it would be access to specialized proprietary agricultural equipment, education and materials, soil tests, access to domestic and international markets, organic amendments, drone research and marketing. But with an Indigenous perspective on it, we've heard from several about our rights and our jurisdiction, and we support that 100%. We are federally licensed, but that's so we can access international markets and bigger markets. But we don't want to have to go and, the government really makes the paperwork tedious when they want to, and they can kill you by 1,000 applications sometimes. So again, education, conversation, and integration. Educate yourself on the plant. Start having conversations with your community and then start integrating it, whether it's being a buyer at the back end to start making finished products, or if you want to get into growing, you want to get into processing. There's so much room, and it's such a huge puzzle that everybody's piece here fits. It's just trying to get them all with the other right pieces. Because with the help of everybody and coming together towards a common goal, we can become the face of the hemp industry, and that's the truth. They've been struggling out there. They need us because we need to lead this industry as people that value earth, the environment, and the land, and each other. This is what this industry is based upon. And that's why it's been illegal, because it's something for the people that will protect the people. It's not a corporate mining or corporate what's my favorite term I heard yesterday? Something that's just based on your return on investment. That's not what we're here for. We're here with the bigger picture and for the people. So we must grow our own path in independence and respect our connection to this land and our love for the water. We must work together to be successful and take the industry to where it can go. And this will only happen with an open mind and a fire to do something great with our lives. It's time we invest our time and money and land into something that will benefit us from the ground up. And this is what I believe, and this is how it'll change the world and the lives of our people, because I've already seen people's lives change from this industry, and it's amazing to see and how happy they are. So with that, Cook Shem, and thank you. That's a little on Green Future Industries. But now the exciting part. I had a slide missing in there, but I had a couple of things on the issues with the industry. And one of the biggest issues is technology and harvesting and processing. Those will be your biggest burdens and barriers to get to anything. And right now, I can tell you as somebody that's gone around and seen what's out there and done all my due diligence, there's not much hope. And the stuff that's out there, I don't always believe. But in my quest for the industry, I have come across some great people. And next, I'd like to introduce one of those amazing people, Mr. Jim Hill. He's the founder of Hill Agra. Jim Hill has been creating specialized agricultural machinery for over 60 years. He's a world-renowned specialist in all forms of crops. Jim has traveled around the globe providing solutions to challenging problems. Recognizing the potential value of hemp, he became an advocate for the plant and began creating very specialized equipment relating to hemp. He's invented some of the greatest machinery in the industry. Unfortunately, a devastating fire destroyed his shop in June 2014. He lost a lot of his products, a lot of his material, and a lot of his blueprints. We've formed a strategic alliance with Mr. Hill to work with him on rebuilding Hill Agra and introducing the Canadian hemp community to the new Hill Agra with their new equipment. Jim has years of experience, and I can't say enough great things. Every time I listen to him, I just get a wealth of knowledge, and as I respect him as my elder. And without further ado, Mr. Hill, thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Hill. As Stephen has stated, I'm a founder and owner of Hill Agra Machinery. My background, well, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone that had participated in inviting me out to participate in this great conference. I really am impressed with what's going on here. I have worked in the Okanagan Valley previous to this. I have many different facets to my operation. One of them is fruit growing equipment, and I spent some time here in Vernon and also Kelowna and Peachland areas. I set up some hydrocooling and sizing setups for cherries. That's about 10, 12 years ago, and I always was fascinated with this fabulous area down here. These mountains, for us guys back in Ontario, mountains are kind of special, and I enjoy coming back here. My background has been mostly in the vegetable industry. I have developed some 30 different kinds of harvesters, different types for different crops: potatoes, onions, turnips, carrots, ginseng, any kind of a root crop we worked with, and in many different countries. I spent time in the Middle East and Africa. I've been in China, Korea, across North America, the Caribbean, and South America. So I've been in about 30 countries doing stuff like this. So I've had a lot of experience. The first thing is to come up with a concept. Next thing is to build a machine and then sell it, take it out to the country that's there, and commission the machine and train the people to operate it. And hopefully they remember what you taught them when you're leaving for the airport. But anyhow, I've done that many times, and the experience that I bring with working with possibly well over 300 different kinds of machines over my career so far is about 60 years working in this. So, and I was always used to be the young kid on the block. Now I'm the dinosaur. And it's hard to get used to that idea. The training of this situation is instrumental in how to go forwards in the new years with this. Most of all, it's attitude and, of course, education. And from there, that's a great help to be able to expand upon teaching people how to operate these machines safely and productively. When I first got started with hemp, it's like everyone else. You don't usually walk into it. You fall into this situation. I was thinking one day when I sat in my office, there must be life after a potato field. And where is it? After looking around through things, one word kept coming up, and that was hemp. And what is it? So you start researching it. And after a while, we found out that this is a most fantastic plant. There's nothing else that I've run across in my life. Ginseng is about the closest thing to it, but it doesn't do what this plant does. This plant gives you everything that you can work with. Your imagination is the limit, except, of course, with the financial restraints, which some companies seem to use as a weapon against progress. But however, after researching the situation, I discovered it was very easy to plant this product. That's why they call it a weed. Throw it in the ground, it grows. But you got to control it. So this plant will grow in very, very poor soils. The only thing about it is it doesn't like getting its feet wet. And if it does, it will die. You'll see that in the fields as you go across. So it doesn't require much help to do this except from Mother Nature, as long as there's some nutrients in the ground to support it, like most other plants. It grows faster than anything out there. That's why you don't require these materials. To control this, there's two ways of planting it after you make a seed bed, and that is either broadcast it or use a corn planter or a grain drill. So you got it in a row system. And then you pretty well just stand there and watch it grow. 90 days later, the Industrica, there's two types, Industrica and Indica. The Industrica grows like corn or bamboo. The Indica is more like a Christmas tree type thing. And until just the last couple of years, we were not allowed to work with any of the flowers that was on this material. So we had three things to work with: seed or grain, as we have to change it right immediately to, and fiber and herd. Now the new game changer came in, and that was called CBD. And that allowed us to work with flowers and, of course, the resins and other materials. But that also gave us another product in there, and it's like everything else. When you grow something, you want everything, not just one or two things, and it's hard to distinguish with what it is. If you want the seed and the oil, you pretty well destroy the stalks getting to it. So we have been trying to change this so we can have everything in that part in a harvest. The tricky part comes after this thing is preparing the stalks to be used in to sell in industry. But with it's very difficult to marry up the agricultural angle to the industrial end of it. As a farmer, you have to be an expert in 25 or more different fields just to exist. And you have to battle things like the weather, too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry, too whatever. And as a result, and of course, then you have the problems with these pests in here called the inspectors in the government. But anyway, surviving all that, you wind up with a product that's just a stock, but it has nothing to do with the chemical ends of things, THC or any other derivative oils that's in it. But CBD is the new gold rush that's out there. And that is because people seem to follow the money. And CBD, the average cost that I've been told from several sources, averages about $7,800 per kilo. But that's for medical and material, and it's as long as it's certified for that. So a lot of people, they tend to forget that you should sell a product before you grow it. Because if we follow the policies that our people to the south of us do, they just grow and then they flood the market and bingo, it's gone. But they don't have the equipment to prepare it, to see it through the whole deal. So as a result, after spending the family jewels to grow this stuff, it's very sad to see it going down and they can't do nothing with it. And that's the problem. So they're going to be very discouraged in that area. We in Canada are a little more prudent. We like to sell it before we do anything else. Now, we're getting into the problem next of getting the stigma of this, the smoke stage of it. We're getting that pretty well thinned out here at this point, but years ago it was pretty bad. I started working on these hemp machines back 30-some years ago after I discovered what they were and then researched it. Went through the Schlichten paper situation, learned all about that. Those of you that have read them or don't know anything about them, they're something you should read about. It's got everything in it from the first notices of industrial espionage in it, cloak and dagger, and to this day it still is very prevalent in there. I have many companies that's just waiting with bated breath for the next move that I make on a machine in engineering. And I've been, well, they say copying is one of the greatest praises you can have on your work. But another, it is eroding the ground from underneath you in most cases. But however, after studying this design of the Schlichten machine, deciding that the patents, you couldn't build a machine from it because they were having such big problems with it. And it all started back about 100 years ago from now. And it was put down by the large oil companies. The hemp industry was taken out of the hands of the growers and put into the oil industry because that was a new emerging thing. And we've seen what the result of that is in the last 100 years. Now we've got the rebirth of all this, and we are trying to mechanize it to the point where it's going to be commercial again. After researching this, I discovered that it's, like I said, it's easy to plant, relatively easy to harvest. You just cut the plant down, let it field wet for a bit. But the big problem come in the decortication of it. To be able to take that fiber and separate it from the inner pith material of the hurd and do it in a fast enough method that it made it commercial. Most machines on the markets will truthfully handle somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 pounds an hour, though the claims are much higher. This is not grassland farming. You can't handle this stuff like you do a baler, for instance. I'd sure like to meet the cow that could eat this material. As it certainly I can't. It's like handling branches of a tree. The area that I thought that I could help in this industry was the decortication. So we're looking at these old terminologies like decortication, hurd, this, that. I don't know. I think they're all English versions of it. I ended up coming up with a new name for our machines that we wanted to do, and I decided to look into the decortication end of it, and that's what I've spent my time in doing. And as a result, I come up with a name called fiber extractor. FiberX is short, which is what we have. This machine doesn't just work with industrial hemp. It works with flax, nettles, cactus. It'll even do a burdock if you put it through there because it's got fiber in it. And it's strange enough it will. But one of the most important things before you put through a machine like that is it has to separate the fiber from the inner pith material called the hurd. And that's the preparation before it goes through this. And that also means in the volume that you can put through with the machine. So there's, everyone seems to be familiar with an idea of a roller type system where you put the plant through and it crushes it. And of course the thing is to shake out the hurd from the fiber as it passes through it. But after doing some studying with it, I found at least a half a dozen other ways of doing it. And it also to increase the volume on it. So I came up with this concept on one I decided I would build, and I called it the Enterprise. And I was shooting for a 10-ton per hour capacity through the machines. And I achieved it, but it was very costly. It cost me my plant. I found a lot of things that a lot of people don't realize that's in there. This stuff is very volatile, and you can lose it in a flash fire so quickly, and this is what happened with me. The methods and procedures of doing this are different. I chose one, and that was take a bale. Everybody had the idea of baling this material, round or square. So I built a device that will handle a round or a square bale, either diamond-shaped or whatever, force it into a vertical tower with little hooks on it, which are patentable features in there, different types, and tackle the strain crossways by splitting the fiber and then getting at the hurd. So it was more of a design of a bale breaker. But using that, you could decorticate 60 to 70% of that before you'd have to finish it. So with using a roller system afterwards, a machine I call a 2060, which is 20 rollers long, 5 feet wide, horizontally posed, and designing it that no matter what direction you put the material in, whether it's straight in or angle-wise or crossways, it will still decorticate it. So we use that in Kniff, we use it on hemp, we use it on many other different products, and we found it was very successful. So what this happens is, there's so many things, the logistics of this, it just is mind-blowing. For instance, to do 10 tons per hour of hemp in bales, you've got to go into suggesting, for instance, a 6-foot bale would weigh 1,000 pounds. Well, and you stop to think about that, how many bales is that? Well, it ends up being 120 feet long if you set them end to end. The logistics of trying to get all them in an hour lined up to go through a machine, it takes 3 people to do that. 3 different machines to get that lined up. And not only do you get that in, you've got to separate the hurd and the fiber. It's got to be taken away out of the area so you can work at it. Because this material all weighs approximately 5 pounds to the cubic foot when it's dried at approximately 12 to 15%, which is about where it's worked with. If you'd do less than that, in a 10, 8, 10, 5, this stuff becomes a dust and it disappears. Fiber, everything just goes. It's got to have moisture too at this point. If you go into 20%, we can still handle it, but your weight is much more. So in other words, if you decorticate this material and you want to take a load of hurd someplace, you fill a 55-foot tractor trailer with it, it'll weigh about 7 tons. That doesn't hardly pay the diesel fuel to run the thing anyplace. So you have to compress it 4 to 1. So you have to bale it or cube it so that your cubic footage is approximately 20 pounds per cubic foot. That's trying to attain upwards of 30 ton per load, which is getting you into the commercial area where you can haul it if you had to. But basically, you cannot take and move this material to the machine. You have to take the machine out to where the material is, because when you start handling and moving it, your cost goes higher than the cost of the material. So this is why all the equipment that I designed and built, and I've made various models of them. I have brought a few hand pieces of literature to show some of the smaller units that people know about or have an idea of or understand. This system here, it means that you have, to get up with the tonnage, you have such a lot harder and larger investment. But if you have it portable, you get away from all these inspectors. I call it a circus. You think of it in that range, because you can set up and build this in an area where you have a lot of material, and then overnight you can move this thing over to another site and start working over there. So by the time any of these inspectors get a line on you, you're someplace else. And it's very simple to do. And these things running 24/7 will produce an enormous amount of material. And that's what we're up to. But now we'll get into the retting of this material, which is very important. The old-fashioned way they used to do this was water retting, and so they polluted all the streams in Europe. If you pick up a book of Flax in Flanders, it costs about $100 on the internet if you look to see what it's about. It'll give you a real good history of this, of flax and hemp, working more or less hand in hand with it, and the history coming up to the present day. Most of this is done over in Flanders. They've polluted every stream, like I said, in Europe doing this. This material there's nothing exotic about working with hemp. It's probably one of the hardest jobs anyone will ever want to look at and see. But they were working for fiber. Fiber was the most important thing that they could get to make cloth, rope, and all this sort of stuff. I see Stephen done a wonderful job of setting this up, talking about in his presentation about everything going, and I don't want to reiterate on it, but one of the points he said was 50,000 uses. Well, I think I'd run out of breath at about 1,000 if I was doing it from this point, but there may be a lot of other things I don't know about. However, we now find that the game changer of that CBD oils in there have changed the situation around. We only wanted to change from hemp, the hurd, to the fiber. If you water ret this material, you're going to lose that hurd. And that hurd right now is more valuable than the fiber is. So how we have to do that is a dew retting system or a drying system that's got, you've got similar to photosynthesis, wet, dry, wet, dry. Retting is just a controlled rot. But the thing that you don't want to do is have the material touch the ground, because then it gets these little black spots in it, which is mold. And when you separate the fiber and you see the little black spot and you give it a pull, it'll break. The other parts do not. And that's how you get into this grading situations, which we don't have. But skilled workers at it will recognize what material is, and it has not been researched in that area at this point to be able to have a positive grading, national grading system published. So field retting is probably the only way at this point to gain the material. So in other words, cut the plant down, set it on top of the stubble, flip it over, maybe turn it a couple times so when the enzymes are working on there to separate this material. You have two types of glue in this material that I found on retting for the fiber. You have what's an Elmer's glue, which I call it that because that's which holds the fiber to the stalk or the herd. Taking that part off, the next one is a fiber bundles, and we call it a super glue that's in there. And that's your next stage that has to be done. This degumming process, they used to call it, can all be done in one operation if you do it in a controlled ret in a tank. When you get through with this thing, it's amazing. The end result product, how to test it is take a little piece of material, put it in a glass jar, shake it up, dry it on some paper towel, put it in a microwave for 7 seconds, and it'll pop up just like cotton batting. It's amazing to see that stuff happen. Then you know that your retting process is done properly. You've got rid of both of those glues at the same time, but you also got rid of your herd. And that is something you don't want. So that's for fiber. If you're working with the other, you can get both if you field ret. Now, the process of just leaving it in the field with photosynthesis can work as well by tying it and stooking it, leaving it, and then you can leave it for several months out there, but you have to get to it before it starts to rot in the spring. So there's a point where you can find it. The larger machine that I had, I renamed that after that disastrous fire we had. It was a very simple thing, the way this fire started. We had decorticated some material, and we had some people coming from the States to have a look at this thing, Kentucky as well as Colorado. For the next morning, we done part and left it there for a demonstration. One of our guys come over, he's seen a weld that he wasn't too happy about on one of the shields, and he wanted to change it. I said, don't do that. Just leave it where it is. I went to the office to do some things, and 2 minutes later, they said, better get it on the floor, you got a problem there. And the place was an inferno. He went in with a grinder, and you just give it a little touch, a few sparks. This stuff was in the air, was floating around from the decortication. That's why I was saying, this has to be portable. It's outside, it's got a good ventilation system, get rid of that. Because if that's in the air, you get a flash fire. And you just lose the whole ball game so fast you can't control it. So anyhow, getting back to this thing of changing this from agriculture to industry. Agriculture is fighting all these different elements, and this is what a farmer has to do to get a product. I don't believe that a farmer can go any further than the decortication of a material, separating the herd from the fiber. At that point, he's got two products to sell. Industry requires a constant product in a constant condition and a good quantity of it. And if he's got those two things, he could sell that. Industry cannot stand the changes of weather or whatever because they have to have a steady production to do what they're going to do. So by producing two products to be able to work with, that's where I think the farmer can upgrade what he has. He's got something to sell. Industry can take it from there and build the 50,000 different uses for it from there. So basically that's it. The other machine that I built, I talked about was the what I called the Enterprise. After the fire, having an Irish sense of humor, this is where my family comes from, the background, we called it the Phoenix 1, out of the ashes. And that's where we are with this machine now. There's so many more things to add to the logistics to make that machine work, but the future lies in getting your tonnage up in the 8 to 10 ton per hour range. There you can afford to pay the guys with the hard hat and the clipboards to run around and keep track of it. Up to that point, it doesn't seem to be commercial. The smaller machines will work on a small operation, but the cost of producing them and whatever it's more like licensing and this other thing we've heard today about these stores that sell in marijuana. You don't have enough cash coming out of it to warrant what you're doing with a lot of this. It's a good start. It will work on a small family operation, but you have to get into something bigger and better to make it go. And we have other models that we can do that with and increase the tonnage. You got to get your tonnage up to get your dollars to pay the expenses that's in there. So that's about all I have to say with that end of it, until Stephen's got something else here. Thank you.
So yeah, thank you very much, Jim. Just to kind of give a little recap there. So Jim has been working again to rebuild after his fire, and there's some stuff on the screen there of his FiberX model 1536, which they have just about finished building. And you know, in this chain of processing, I wanted to bring this to the table to everybody here. Is, you know, we can grow it with this machine and what they're doing, which is very well priced compared to everything out there. We can bring this, and this is what you need to get your building material. So this is the only stage of processing required so you can start building with the hemp you grow. So when he says it's portable and it's good for small operations, that's who we are. We're not huge, big ag with 15, what they call tracts of land in Alberta. Like, that's not who we are. They took that from us, but now we're smaller operations who are trying to get more community applications. So for you to grow 100 acres only, or 50 acres, and work in your cooperative to pool together financing to get one of these machines and bringing it around after harvest to each field so we can all process, you're all going to have your building material, and you can start building with that right away. So I wanted to bring this because this is a huge piece in the whole industry, and I'm thankful that Jim is here to talk with us, because as somebody that's been studying and reading and researching this industry, this is the key for success, and he's here at the National Indigenous Cannabis and Hemp Conference, bringing this to us first, not anybody else. This is one of your first shows since coming back from the fire, and he's here with us because he's seen our values and where we want to go with this industry, and he aligns with that, and he wants to see that. So it's about bringing good people to the table who have a wealth of information and education for us, and it's about sharing that with everybody. So if you're interested in building, processing, talk with Jim. He has a booth. We have a booth set up in the back corner with some hemp, and it's a little bit of different form of hempcrete, as well as the different parts of the hemp plant, as well as some information on his equipment for you to take and think about. Because again, this is how you get into that building. This is how you get into these industries. This is the first step. And so talk amongst each other about where you see fitting in that, whether you're a big nation that can get your own, or get the Phoenix, where it's a big 10-ton an hour project, or if you're a small community who just wants to build 5 to 10 homes a year and grow a small patch of hemp and get a partner in co-op with the 1536. Those are all they're both equally as important, and they have the same kind of community impact, which we're all striving for. So I just wanted to say that and say thank you again, Jim. But as well, we have some time still before lunch. I just want to maybe open it up to some questions. If people have some questions on hemp, processing, growing, any of those kind of things, genetics, we're here to answer any questions. So I'll open it up, and we have somebody standing at mic 1.
So in terms of the decorticator and the cost, we've been through it. I know it's not attainable for very small communities and individual entrepreneurs. Now, you've already alluded to the co-op. So can you tell us where you're at in terms of establishing the co-op and structuring it, what that looks like, and how to access that?
Yeah. So So a co-op wasn't like it wasn't a primary objective or something I went into thinking about, but I've been getting a lot of phone calls from people across North America, Indigenous people looking for information, looking for buyers, looking for sellers, looking for how to grow, looking for people in their area, and instead of everybody just talking one-on-one or being just working with people one-on-one, we came up with the idea of creating a bigger co-op where all that information is somewhere stored so people can go there, find the people easily, and start talking with each other and networking, because that's what it's all about. We all know each other in a certain extent. If you're in First Nations politics, you go to enough events and conferences, you see a lot of familiar faces, and we're all relations at the end of the day. And it's about finding the people in your region and trying to connect people that can help you, people that might have things that you don't. Equipment co-ops are a huge way of getting started in industry. Because again, yes, if you're a very small band and you don't have the finances to buy a couple $100,000 machinery, working with a small group of people, you can get that done and start doing the things you need to do. We don't have any official things done, and we're going to have a conversation later about how people would want to see a co-op. It has to be kind of decided by everybody, and just even getting information public is, I think, the biggest thing for a co-op, and connecting people and putting them together in contact with other good people in the industry, because I've seen a lot of bad people and people that would, unfortunately, some words of warning on companies coming in and taking advantage of First Nations land. We do have some rights regarding genetics and getting those things on the approved cultivar list. I've seen big companies come in and flash a fancy contract, and then they use all those contracts on First Nations land to leverage financing for their own equipment, and then a lot of the risk is stuck on the First Nation farmers who, then don't get any assistance in the long run because the company has got their funding, they've got their equipment now, and they're open for business, whereas some of the farmers are drowning in debt, or they're drowning and not knowing what they're doing in the first place and weren't given the proper tools or education on how to be successful. And I don't want to see that. So I have those are some words of warning, and do your due diligence when you're working with somebody and making sure they know what they're doing more so than anything, because a lot of people, again, are just jumping in with 2 feet. And if you've seen any of the news out of the States, there's a lot of lawsuits of companies not delivering and things not being ready on time. And with Canada, needing an LP for extraction and CBD, and those could take a year. But you don't have a year to sit on your crop. You don't have a year to sit on semi-wet biomass and do those kind of things. Time is of the essence, and sometimes they don't always coordinate, but thank you.
Hi there. I'm just curious, could we get a ballpark figure for the cost of this machine? Just if you want to use it for planning or whatever, you kind of need sort of like, is it like $100,000 or is it like?
So for the
200, like what are we talking?
For the Fiber X model, I don't want to put any permanent price on it, but you're looking at the $300,000-$400,000 range. Once everything's said and done, that might not include the training or stuff, but those are things we're finalizing now with helping Jim in our relationship and getting those things accessible so people can, put together the numbers on what your viability and saleability of your herd and your fiber is, so you can put together a good business plan to take to funding agencies, lending agencies. There's a lot of investment people that were here today, giving them a solid, real good look at what the opportunity is. And there's a lot more coming through, but again, there's big companies out there who want to work with hemp, who would love to incorporate hemp, but as Jim said, they need consistency, they need quality, and they need a lot of it, like a lot of hemp to fill some of these orders. And it's more than all of us. If we all grew 1,000 acres, we wouldn't even be able to fill some of these orders. That's how big they are. Because if you think about the amount of plastics that are out there, the amount of, so many different things. Car panels have been put out for contract and bidding for hemp. There's a lot of car companies turning into it for biodegradable panels, and they're easy to replace and cheap. So there's tons of interest, but they don't have the equipment. So that's why I wanted to bring this here to you, because this is a huge announcement and a huge step forward. And I'll tell you, it might sound like a big price, but there's other out there at the same capacity going for 5 times that amount. And so, you know, that's kind of where the comparison is. And being portable, it's easy to share. It's easy to bring around to farms, because transportation of big bales is very expensive, whereas this can fit on the back of your truck and you can take it down to the nation next door and do that in a month, go that down to the other nation, do that, and help everybody out. And that's kind of what we would like to see, and what we're bringing here, because it'll take all of us to grow and build it. And yeah, I just wanted to say that. So we also have a video of one of his models working. I don't know if we can get it. Oh yeah, this is an old VHS model, as you can tell. But that was this was before the fire. This was this video. So yeah, this is the video of his first original machine, and you can see it coming out pretty quickly. So as you can see, it'll take people to pull material, feed material. But again, those are jobs in your community, easy jobs with little training and education involved. So anybody can do these jobs. So, these are the kind of jobs we need right now. We don't need more high-level certificates or, the degrees. Those aren't the people in our community that need the jobs right now. It's people that are coming out of a bad situation that just want to make their life better, and these are positions that they can fill. With that, while this is playing, I'll go to mic number 2.
Thank you. I was wondering if you could describe the process of separating the flour and the seeds, and possibly the production, if you had an LP or someone else had an LP, the extraction of the oil.
For us, as green, or just in general?
Just in general, how is that process done?
So just to give some ideas on when you're growing the hemp plant, when you're growing for flour, you will not get seed. You will harvest before you go sets for seed, because you're at a higher CBD rate and you want to harvest at your peak. So you won't get both in the same kind of crop. In fact, when you grow for CBD, you'll plant completely differently, or you'll need to buy feminized seeds, because you don't want any males in there to pollinate, so it keeps the high CBD ratio. A lot of them will start from seedlings and transplant, because the cost of one of those seeds is very expensive, opposed to just broadcasting or planting in a denser male-female plants. So with those things, so if you're harvesting for CBD, there's some equipment out there. A lot of people this year hand harvested and just went out and cut the tops off and dried them on their makeshift dryers, hang dry them, drying racks. That's what we did for some of our flour this year to do some testing on. It wasn't a huge priority, but we still wanted to play around with it and see what we could get. We made a couple oils, and I gave it to some local medicine makers in my community who wanted to incorporate hemp into their traditional medicines and creams and CBD, which they've gotten really good reviews on. But and then with the seed, we harvested for seed, and we used just a traditional combine to take the tops off, and then we'll go down and cut the stalks and bale it after. But with the combine, you get a pretty good result. Unfortunately, it's very tough. It'll wind up and bind up in your combine. It'll catch fire on a hot, sunny day. We caught fire a couple times this year, hey Tim, and we had to cut it open and try to put the fire out, and it was very entertaining. I'll say entertaining since it didn't burn all the way down. So it's good. So there are different ways of doing it, and Jim has some ideas on designing equipment specifically for harvesting CBD to capture the most amount and keep the plants. Those will be at a later date. He'll discuss those. But for now, he wanted to show the 1536 and talk a little bit about it, the Phoenix one, which was what I think is definitely one of the biggest game changers once that goes to market, because that's 8 to 10 times the capacity of any machine on the market currently. And those machines that are doing 1 ton from other companies are going for millions of dollars. So to give you an idea of the industry as it is and why there is no processing, because it doesn't make a whole lot of financial sense when you're only doing 1 ton an hour and you're getting a lot of tons per acre. So yeah, hopefully that kind of answers. But CBD harvesting and drying is still being developed. It was the first year for a lot of people, and there was a lot of bad crops. Mold was a huge issue for a lot of people in North America with the CBD, as well as the low CBD testing that was coming out. So it was too low to be of any value. So the genetics aren't quite there in Canada on the approved cultivar list. So maybe in 3 years they'll have high CBD seeds, but I know there's a lot of people trying to fight and get some on the list now because, as you know, in the US, they legalized everything hemp under the Farm Bill, so they can grow high CBD seeds right away. They did this year, so they already are a couple of years ahead of Canada, even though they just legalized it last year, and we've had it legalized for 20 years. So there's a huge, that's what government can do to an industry. So we'll see what happens in the future, but I know the U.S. is planting a lot of acreage really fast, and Canada, I think, actually went down in acreage this year. So, yeah.
So in BC, you have, in Shuswap, you have access to water, you have your lakes, you have rivers, and I've seen how you irrigate your field. In Alberta, Manitoba, not as many lakes, not as many rivers. So the question is, how much water needs to be piped in per acre?
That's a good question, and I don't have an answer for you. There's still research to be done. I think, you say that, but then all I heard out of Alberta was it rained every day. And they lost crops because it rained every day. And then, whereas in BC, I lost everything one year because it was on fire every day and I couldn't see the sun. The lake didn't help me when there was a forest fire taking over the mountain in the background, and there's smoke everywhere. So, there's people that grow on dry land. I've done dry land growing as well. Your yields will be lower just because it does not getting that water. But if you have a good rainy season, you can have a great yield even with no irrigation. You can have irrigation and have a bad yield because it was 40 degrees and then, I had irrigated fields and I had to go out and do repairs every morning because something blew and something did something. So, but you can grow on dry land. Your yields will be a little bit lower, and there's a lot of people in Alberta doing that currently. So there is opportunity there. Well, with that, Jim will be around. We have the booth in the back. We have some more presenters after lunch today talking more about the building and the bricks. We have Just Biofiber. We have Chris Magwood coming on from the Endeavor Center, which is a school that works with hempcrete and has been building net zero homes in Ontario. He's been doing some very interesting research and development in the hempcrete business, and he'll be sharing that with everybody. So again, if building is something you want to get into, we've kind of showed you how to grow. We've showed you how to process it and where to get your processing material. Now we'll show you where to get the people, the skills to build. So hopefully by the end of the day, you can go home and you can put together a hempcrete business, or you can put together something to rebuild your community locally. And with that, I will break for lunch. We're a little early, which is good. Everybody can go mingle and enjoy a little bit of time. Check out all the beautiful booths and all the people selling their beautiful work. So we're around, and have a good day. Thank you very much.